time in high school, the question of whether social media is preferable to face-to-face communication has been debated every year. The main arguments for real-life communication are that it's honest, it's personal, we can use our body language to communicate, and we can't hide our feelings or simply sign off whenever we wish. Whereas, for online communication, it's convenient. We can always choose when and where to engage, as well as connect to more people than ever before. But does that convenience really liberate us? Does that level of access actually free us up to connect more deeply than we did before? The current COVID-19 situation has limited our capacity for in-person communication, leaving us with only the option to communicate online. An Australian Bureau of Statistics study showed results that indicated that the pandemic has led to 1 in every 5 Australians suffering from loneliness. In many ways though, COVID has only exacerbated a sense of isolation we were already feeling, whereas before we had our in-person selves and our online selves. Now we're only limited to the latter, and I believe it's cutting us off from each other. We are constantly trying to present ourselves as what we want other people to see, often making us feel alone, making us feel that no one in our social circle really understands the real versions of who we are. We are constantly plugged in. When we send or receive a text, we hardly think about it. There's no intention behind our communication. It's just a default setting. And when we post on social media, our primary thoughts are about how to make ourselves look like the best or prettiest or smartest versions of ourselves. Who we are day to day never feels like enough. During any other time, this will be the part where I recommend that everyone dive back into in-person communication. But of course, that's not an option right now. COVID has forced our hands. Online communication is all we've got. Luckily, there are some things we can do to form genuine connections on a small scale that feels much more tangible, intentional, and honest than liking a photo on Instagram or sending a Snapchat. I'm here as living proof that there are ways to get to the heart of who people are and what they're experiencing, even when we can't see each other in person. The truth is, a month into this pandemic, I was getting tired of that feeling, the sense that we are texting for the sake of texting rather than as a result of wanting to thoughtfully communicate and connect. So, in order to try and break down that barrier, I started Global Youth Voices and Letters Against ISO. These initiatives are small relative to other modern mediums of communication, yet they're connecting people in a way that feels more tangible. The goal of Global Youth Voices is to unpack people more, breaking through the surface level. We run short interviews with young people across the world, learning about each of their unique stories and situations. We use social media, but only as a vehicle for sharing real people's stories, thoughts, fears, hopes, and desires. It's a different way of using Instagram than how most people do. But so far, we found our audience loves connecting and relating to short, honest tidbits from people around the world. Letters Against ISO is a community organisation that sends letters to aged care residents all across Australia. 80% of our writers are high school students, and together we write encouragement letters every week to elderly residents. The aim of this is to bridge the gap between young people and the elderly, for us to support them during this unpredictable time. But the goal is also personal to me. I wanted to feel like my thoughts and words meant something again. I wanted to have a reason to put time and care into communicating with other people. Putting down my phone and picking up a pen turned out to be the great way to do that. Writing a letter requires time and attention. And intention. That's the key. It's not swiping, taking a millisecond and clicking like, and then swiping further. It's 5, 10, 15 minutes to sit and consider what to write to someone you don't know. Someone whose feelings you inherently care about, someone who you want to validate, and someone who you know will want to validate you back. Sure, convenience is great. But sometimes it's nice to have a thoughtful process behind the parts of our lives that we share. And that's what letter writing is. Letters Against ISO is specifically for young people to communicate with those isolated in aged care homes. There's something profoundly humble and reverential about meeting older people where they are, about using a medium of communication that they grew up with to talk to them. In some ways, it's a homage to a time long past. These days, we almost never take time out to do things the way others would like them to do. We're so often focused on how we want things done. There's real value in that adjustment, in that additional time spent, in the patience and thoughtfulness it requires. It slows us down, helps us think things through and reflect. I created Letters Against ISO because I longed for a form of communication that didn't feel superficial, that didn't prioritize convenience over depth. I'm not naive. I know social media is our present and our future. But I also know that humans spent thousands of years communicating via the written word, taking hours and days and weeks to go back and forth with one another. I know that our average reply time now is mere seconds, and I know that something is lost in that haste. Anyone can create something like this, like Global Youth Voices or Letters Against ISO. It took a little idea and a little effort, but honestly, there are so many ideas waiting out there for someone to take initiative with. So many ways to connect us more deeply, to help us understand each other. Take an interest you have, such as art, music, sports, or video games, and with a little bit of time, you can turn it into your very own project, especially if you're a high school student. For example, if you love art, invite people to join a Zoom call where each artist shares their own personal art for 5 minutes. Create an online museum where upcoming artists can connect through their combined love for art. With some organization, you could also even organize a speaker series by sending a few emails out to people at the top of their artistic fields. The point is, there's a reason so many of us are feeling disconnected right now, and it's not only because we can't see each other in person. If we take the time and put in the effort, there are ways for us to connect to one another honestly and deeply. It can start with something as simple as a single letter, sent to a person eager to read it.